You've exposed new players to Test rugby, and one or two of them, and one in particular, has looked absolutely
Mr. Holland.
outstanding.
Yep, he has. Yep. The find of the season. I've called him like last year's Satiti almost.
The ability of him to come off the wing and just pop up in places where the defence don't expect him to be. I don't care where he's playing, just as long as he's in the team.
Was that a forward pass from Jordan to Leonard Brown for the try in the first half?
You can talk about this with Murray and get him to talk about what happens when you throw a pumpkin out of a moving
Oh, that's
truck.
right. An orange and it goes backwards with the Pythagoras' theorem.
Yeah.
DSPN, the Devlin Sports Podcast Network.
Rugby, 3 tests then done and dusted versus the French. How good are our All Blacks? As we now face Argentina in 2, and then, of course, always look into those 2 against South Africa. The Wallabies look like young boys playing against big blokes, against the Lions. How would we go against that Lions side, a full-strength All Blacks side? How good is South Africa after the 4 games that they have played, and their under-20s pipped us at the post? We've got lots of questions for you. Tony Johnson from Sky Sport joining again, and I've got 5 quick-fire ones. I want an answer to these. Would the All Blacks at full strength beat this Lions side in a 3-test series?
Hypothetical, but I'd give him a good chance, yep.
Would this current Australian side that you saw against the Lions beat the French B team that we've just beaten?
Hypothetical, but I'd give them a good chance.
Is Luke Jacobson, the poor bugger, the unluckiest player in any code in New Zealand at the moment?
Yeah, this isn't hypothetical. Yeah, probably.
Yeah,
poor
God,
guy.
I felt for him.
Yeah.
Was that a forward pass from Jordan to Leonard Brown for the try in the first half?
You can talk about this with Murray and get him to talk about what happens when you throw a pumpkin out of a moving
Oh, that's
truck.
right. An orange and it goes backwards with the Pythagoras' theorem.
Yeah.
Under-20s beat us.
By the way, on that, if the ball floats forward but went backwards out of the hand, that's not forward. They would have checked it.
Okay, I don't think so. Yeah. Okay, what can we read into the under-20s? And when I say there, South Africa beating us?
Well done, South Africa.
All right, let's get into these topics then, and that one we'll save till last for our South African
there's
friends.
plenty to talk about.
Plenty to talk about.
It was
Tony, we played 3 tests, and I started the show by saying, I don't know. I wanted to know after the 3 tests how good we are. I think that if I was able to pick my 15/23 and they were all fully fit, I really rate that All Black side, but I question whether or not the depth after that is actually good enough to be in that level, at that level.
Yeah, well, I think what this series did was it provided the All Blacks with a chance to lay some building blocks for later on in the year, and that's when we find out just how good this team is, how much they've progressed from last year. I guess the normal run of events would have been that the French would have been tired at the end of this long, gruelling season that they have, and probably 1 foot on the plane and ready to go home, and the All Blacks would have kicked on from where they played in the second test with the same players and won it comfortably. It didn't work out like that. Firstly, France played their best combination. They fired up really well, made a good start. The All Blacks made changes, quite a number of changes to a winning team, and I guess there was a disruptive effect around that. It took a while for them to settle down, particularly with France playing well. You had the late disruption of a change to the back line late in the week, and then a change probably, within 15 minutes of the game kicking off.
Yeah.
So there were some disruptions there. So to me, you take it. They came through that potentially awkward game, and they completed a 3-test sweep of the series. After all, it'll go down in the record books as a 3-test win, a 3-0 win over France in a test series. But more importantly, what they've done is that they have used all of their squad. They had a promise that they would do that, and so that's been done. You've exposed new players to Test rugby, and one or two of them, and one in particular, has looked absolutely
Mr. Holland.
outstanding.
Yep, he has. The find of the season. I've called him like last year's Satiti almost. I mean, he's potentially that good, isn't he?
He looks like a rock that'll be in the middle of that All Black pack for a long time. We can talk more about him. Obviously, we've talked quite a lot about him. So there's that. I guess they've tried a few things out. We know a bit more about the depth of the team because that's been tested. Let's not forget, Martin, that by the time the team took the field on Saturday night, there were probably 11 or 12 players who would be considered in the front line who weren't available for that game. So it still, no matter how weak or strong the French team was, it was an examination of the depth. And I think in some positions, definitely some depth has emerged. There are still still question marks over 2 or 3 aspects
Agreed.
of the team,
Yep.
and still definite work-ons that will need to be improved. Areas like kick-off receptions, things like that, will need to be and far more efficient by the time they get to the Rugby Championship. But look, the building blocks, the foundations are there, and so to me, if you're giving them marks, I give them a really solid B.
Yeah, I was going to say B. Yeah, good. And I started off with a C+ in the first test, but as much as I want to win every single test and I want to win them well and things, we have to look at it as developmental. There's no other way to look at that 3-test series, right? We have to.
Yeah, in a way, France laid the table with the team they came out.
Yeah, right.
They've treated it as a development exercise, and so the All Blacks likewise have done the same. They've shown a bit of faith. They've said to guys, we think you're good enough to start test matches. Get out there and prove it to us. As I say, there are areas that they'll need to improve. We've established that the All Blacks have really good depth now in their tight 5, and I think the advent of Holland has enabled them to put a big man Vai on the side of the scrum, and I thought Finau off the bench was really good on Saturday night as well. So that's kind of established. Yep, there's some depth there. There's some options there. There's a good pick and mix in the array of loose forwards. One of the question marks to me is what is behind Cam Roygaard, simply because Roygaard at the moment is head and shoulders.
I think there's a huge gap there, a really big gap, and I also think at hooker there's a huge gap now. I think Cody Taylor has just played so well. I worry about our midfield. I don't think we've got the combination at the moment, but there are options here. And also we've got wingers to burn, but we don't have a Cheslin Colby. So I look at that as well. I mean, you've got Will Jordan solid, right? Him and Artie start every single game, probably Scott Barrett as well. So there are names there that you think, wow, these guys are world class. However, this is the whole point of it. That was like a midweek All Black side if it was an old tour, wouldn't it?
Yeah, possibly. They got good value out of their bench. That was really important as well. And to that end, Jordie Barret, quite outstanding off the bench.
Yes.
And there's no question that Jordie Barret, having had that season in Ireland, has come back a better player. He's a more rounded player. The way he took that outside gap, he's been used in a very direct role, taking the ball straight up, but now he's backing himself. There's a little gap there, a fend, off he goes, burned the big guy, Taufifi Nua, and set up that series clinching try, the test match clinching try for Brodie McAllister. So really encouraged by the shape that he's in coming back from his experience in Ireland. So I think, he and his brother, that's the 10-12 axis.
I agree. Yeah, I think Beauden Barrett has to be playing against South Africa.
Yeah, but Mackenzie, what he offers off the bench, or if they choose to play him at fullback. See, Jordan, to me, I don't care where you play Jordan. I know this is going against the grain. People want to see him playing at fullback where he weaves all his magic for the Crusaders. But to me, the ability of him to come off the wing and just pop up in places where the defence don't expect him to be, that's what happens when he plays on the wing. So I don't care where he's playing, just as long as he's in the team.
Can you see any new names added? And the one that stands out to me is Ethan Blackadder. Can you see Blackadder coming back in for Argentina, for example?
Well, you got to think about the guys who weren't available for this series. I mean, Tamaiti Williams is obviously one, and when he comes back in the front row stocks, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how they start. I think they'll go with the two big guys early on for the biggest
Lomax
matches.
and Williams,
Lomax and Williams.
With Taylor, there's your front row, right?
And there's your front row. And then you bring Newell off the bench. His scrummaging is just off the charts. And what he did late in that game was outstanding. And I think De Groot's come back really well in the series as well.
Don't forget what he also did in the last two Super Rugby games where he played 80 minutes. And that first test against France as well, he was magnificent as well, Fletcher Newell. So, yeah, totally agreed.
I agree with Hooker that Cody Taylor right now, again, like Roygaard's head and shoulders. Look, Taukei'aho gives you a hell of a lot with ball in hand. I wouldn't be too quick to blame Brodie McAllister for the little malfunction that they had in the line-out, because to me there was a communication issue going on there. I mean, the ball went probably where it was supposed to go, and no one lifted Patrick Tuipulotu. So something's come unstuck there. You can't.
Not fitting together.
It's too easy to blame the hooker for all.
Didn't
the
affect his confidence. He was the only one running next to Jordie Barret at the end.
They rectified it. That's the important thing, because we've seen it plenty of times. Go back 25 years,
Anton,
Martin, and back in those 99, 2000, 2001.
Hammett,
a line out goes wrong, and suddenly you've got a meltdown on your hands. So they corrected that. And again, I just love the fact that they've got that big bloke in the middle of the line out that they can can go to. So I think apart from those little wobbles late in the game there, that functioned well. The scrum was really strong towards the end. So the core thing there, that's good. And as I say, most of the things that need fixing are certainly fixable. But just getting back to what we were saying before, no one's really the gap between Roigard and whoever's the other halfback, that needs to be closed, and they'll be working on that. And then you've got those options in the outside back. So, look, I think there's plenty of positives to take out of it, but by the same token, let's not get carried away.
Yeah, I agree.
You've got to take into account the context of the strength of that French team. Look, none of them are bad players.
No.
They all play in a tough league.
But it's not the France side we played on the India tour last year. So,
no, it's not. And that game, wasn't lost by a lot. But I just think in terms of laying the foundations for the rest of the year, to me, you definitely give it a good solid pass.
Tony, how good are the Boks? They played the Barbars, and I couldn't take anything out of that game. They play an Italy side who are also under strength, and they beat them easy. They then play Georgia, and they put 50 points on Georgia, as you'd expect as well. They've got a huge bank of players, 30 or 40 players. They've tried some innovations. But again, what exactly can we read into what we've seen from them?
Well, I don't know that you make too many conclusions that alter the way you already thought about them, and that is that they are a phenomenal side right now. They've got tremendous depth. They've got so many variations in their game. They're broadening the game. As I say, who they were playing almost doesn't matter. For them too, it's just been a really good hit out at the start of the year. Their sights will be set on things down the track. They'll have their eyes on Eden Park and the chance to win a game there. But they too have used a lot of players through this series. They're giving people experience at the top level. They're proving their depth. They haven't had all their best players out either. So, it didn't tell us anything we didn't already know, other than the fact that they tried a couple of real out-of-the-box moves in the second test, just to keep everyone guessing. What are they going to come up with next? So, South Africa still, they are setting the bar.
Well, they are the bar. That's it, aren't they?
They're the best team in the world.
And until we beat them 2-0 at home, or if we do beat them 2-0 at home, well then, we might lay a claim, but up until then.
Yeah. It's something to really look forward to, isn't it?
Don't you wish we were playing the Lions, though? Wouldn't you love to see that Lions team against the very best that we could put up against it? Because, to be honest, that was so disappointing to me. Australia was so physically weak and can't match them at all. They could have run in 50 points if they wanted to in that game.
It was almost sadly predictable what happened. I thought Australia fought really well when the score blows out to, what was it, about 24-5 or something
Game
like
over
that.
at that point, though, wasn't it?
And they got up early on too, and you think, what's going to happen here? So the Aussies did well to keep the score.
Did they button off a bit, though?
They might have. But it was kept at a reasonably respectable level just because they kept trying to do things, and they managed to get over for a couple of tries. But just the whole thing really, as I say, just sadly predictable. To me, there was never any question about who was going to win that game right from the off when they made a steal off one of the first plays of the game. I thought Tyg Byrne was absolutely outstanding in that game, the big Irishman. He was the guy that went in there, got that turnover. They couldn't crack what was it. I thought it was the defence of Australia that really set the tone for them in that game. They were quick off the line and they were really aggressive in the tackle. And Australia's ball carriers just got stopped on the gain line even behind the gain line.
Every time, yeah.
When you look at the stats of the game, in terms of carry metres, they were actually quite similar, but the Lions had 30 fewer carries.
Oh, right, okay.
That's phenomenal.
It just felt like Australia just were running into a wall and they just couldn't go anywhere.
Maybe things will improve. There's a couple of things that might improve them. Obviously, before the series started, when it was still in the distance or on the horizon, you're thinking a guy like Tupou is going to be so important to Australia, but the form just wasn't there.
Yep.
Seems to have lost his confidence. They've lost their confidence in him, and so he's not part of it. losing Skelton, who gives them some massive bulk, a bit like those French locks. They're not necessarily there to win lineouts, but
they're just size, aren't they? Size and power.
They make tackles and they move bodies.
Yep.
And so Skelton, they missed it. And Valentini not being there, probably one of their more effective ball carriers. I still think their loose forwards went pretty well. The other and they'll be hoping that Skelton and Valentini will be back for the second test, and possibly Gleeson off the bench as well. That might give them a little bit more pop and not pop guns.
Until then, the Lions have got more, though.
Yeah.
They looked as though they've got more.
Yeah.
So,
and 9-10 was the other thing as well. Look, I've always been a big fan of Jake Gordon.
Marto pointed this out on Friday, mate. He said the same thing. He said, we're so weak in those positions at the moment. We just aren't up to it.
Well, if you want to try and disrupt them, break them up, then Tate McDermott surely is the guy to do that, because he will have a go. He's brave. He'll have a snipe. We didn't really see that from Gordon, and it's asking a hell of a lot of young liner to step into Test rugby in that sort of a
okay, Lollisy is not the guy that's going to win them the series either, is it? So
Donaldson's more solid than spectacular. He's capable of spectacular at Super Rugby. It just looked a bit more composed when he came on. They didn't kick the ball well, Australia. They kicked it back to them.
Just gave it away.
Well, because they weren't making any ground.
Yeah, what else to do? Box kick,
Yeah, and they dealt with that really well. So it's going to take a hell of an effort for Australia to get themselves back in the series and force a decider going into the third test. And I said it before the series started, that my feeling was that if to make a series out of it, Australia needed to win the first test. Yeah. And I to me, it's already looking like 3-0 to the Lions, they're not the greatest Lions team that we've ever seen, but they're pretty good at what they do, and they're. I thought Finn Russell controlled things really well. He's terrific.
Yeah, 9 and 10 and brilliant.
Yeah.
Loose forwards, they were great. All right, let's end it on the under-20s then. And, the red card was costly. It came back after 20 minutes. I mean, it did cost us because they scored during that time. This is the under-20 All Blacks who had made the final for the first time in 7 or 8 years or something. And so that altered the game. But they are just a nemesis, South Africa, at the moment, aren't they? They beat us in the seniors, they beat us in the juniors.
Nemesis, well, they've always been a potential nemesis, right, all through history. First and foremost, Martin, it was great to see New Zealand and South Africa contesting the final. How good was that?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, we love it. But
it's been dominated by
French,
the French and the English in recent years. France playing in they'd had 3 out of the last 4 finals. Yep. England had won it last year. They'd been in finals. Ireland had been in a final. And so to have New Zealand and South Africa playing in the final, that was great. The game, I thought, was a bit stop-start. Far too many interventions, I think, from people trying to co-referee the game from the box, and that went both ways. I thought the red card was harsh. It wouldn't have been a red probably in Super Rugby. But then, having said that, I also thought one of the yellow cards against South Africa was probably a bit harsh as well.
Right.
So, factor in the game. But at the end of the day, South Africa were they were a bit too good.
Yeah, a bit better.
They were bigger, stronger. They were really well organised. They put a lot of pressure on the Baby Blacks, and I thought they defended really well to keep themselves in the game and keep themselves in with a hunt. But the South Africans had in Hashim Pede, the best player in the tournament, the halfback. He is lightning in a bottle, that guy. Everything he does, he is so quick. His pass, his ability to sum up the situation when he runs, he's like lightning. And he, to me, was the standout player of the whole tournament. He also has got a kicking option as well. And New Zealand defended really well for long periods, but then just a little crack. And as we've seen from South African teams over the years, that's half a chance is all they need, and they took it. So they deserve it. They were the best team there. But I think it was a great effort by New Zealand to beat France in the semi-final, make a good final out of it. And that's encouraging, especially after the difficulties that they've had in recent years.
This is the DSPN.